Overnight, the United States and Cuba reached an historic deal that would allow commercial flights to resume between the two countries. The deal comes the same week Cuba and the United States announced a for direct postal service for the first time in 52 years. And all this comes 1 year to the day since President Obama announced he would restore diplomatic ties with Cuba. Since then, Cuban and American embassies have been reopened. Cuba has been taken off the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism, and President Obama has loosened trade restrictions, calling for the end of the embargo. Now, one Florida lawmaker, the son of Cuban exiles and an opponent of President Obama's Cuba policy, says it's now probably time to reevaluate how Cubans are treated when they arrive in this country, and he's introduced a bill to do just that. Right now, Cubans are automatically granted benefits like food stamps and Medicaid. Those benefits take immigrants of other nationalities years to obtain. Congressman Curbelo, a Republican of Florida, says it's a matter of fairness. Well, joining me now is the sponsor of this bill, Congressman Carlos Curbelo of Florida. Congressman, welcome to Meet the Press Daily.
Chuck, good evening. Thanks a lot for having me.
You got it. Explain. Look, there have been for years a lot of ways that Cubans, when they have come over here to the United States, have essentially had special treatment. There's wet foot, dry foot that a lot of people are aware of when it comes to political asylum. There's this deal that you're... How many of these different special deals do you think need to go away besides the one that you're sponsoring?
Well, here's the issue, Chuck. Our country should continue the tradition of accepting Cubans who are fleeing political persecution in Cuba. Not much has changed inside of Cuba, despite the president's new policy. People are still being arrested, beaten, imprisoned just for disagreeing with the government. Those people should be welcome to the United States, and we've had a long tradition of doing that. What we cannot allow is for the abuse of these special privileges and benefits. And there are cases, and this has been documented by the Sun Sentinel and other outlets down in South Florida, where Cubans are coming to the United States, qualifying to receive a lot of these benefits, including Social Security, then moving back to the island while they continue receiving these benefits. That is totally unacceptable. It violates the spirit of the law. It's an abuse of this country's generosity, and I filed a bill to put an end to that.
Let me ask you, though, on wet foot. This makes perfect sense, and you're right, it was the Sun Sentinel do this. But on going back to wet foot, dry foot, and the special treatment that Cubans get over and above for instantations, why shouldn't that change now if we're going to have direct flights at this point?
There's two things that are undermining laws like the Cuban Adjustment Act, which allows Cubans to come to the United States legally and in 1 year become permanent residents, something that takes other immigrants much longer. Number one, the President of the United States has accepted the Castro government. He's accepted Raul Castro as a legitimate leader. We have diplomatic relations with Cuba, and the President is seeking to fully normalize our relation. That means that in his eyes, the Cuban dictatorship is legitimate. Of course, I disagree with that. The other factor that's undermining this policy is a lot of Cubans who come to the United States. The spirit of the law treats them like exiles, like refugees, and once they become U.S. residents, a year and a day later, they return to Cuba, and that really undermines the claim or the idea that these people are fleeing persecution. So those two factors are combining to undermine this policy. What I'm trying to do here is find a healthy balance and say, look, there's still people who get beaten, who get abused, whose human rights are violated in Cuba. Let's allow those a quick path to freedom while ending all of the fraud and abuse associated with this policy.
Well, should there be a different, I guess, should there be a different way that these folks said people should, look, if Cubans come over here and they say they're fleeing political persecution, that they don't automatically get granted this, that they have to go through a process, a longer process. Should we put that back into place? Because that's what was so loose about this policy for years.
Well, that is what I have introduced is a step in that direction, because now for the benefits, now these are refugee benefits, so any person who comes to the United States and is granted asylum, a process that takes sometimes up to years, they're eligible for these benefits. So what we're doing now is we're saying if you're a Cuban and you come to the United States, if you want these benefits, you actually have to file for asylum just like anyone else. Otherwise, if you're just coming as an economic immigrant, well, you'll get a work permit just like everyone else, and you can start working in our country. And by the way, legal immigrants who come to this country are banned for 5 years from receiving any welfare benefits, because the idea is we bring people to this country to work so that they can contribute.
Congressman Curbelo, it seems to make sense. My guess is we're heading down. Everything's going to get normalized at some point, including how Cubans get treated when they come to the United States.
And hopefully how Cubans on the island get treated, too.
Well, there is still a lot more there, and you're right. I've heard plenty of stories of things not so good there still. Congressman, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You got it. Up next.